Hey guys, Tammy here. And in this video, I'm going to talk about negotiating with a narcissist. Now, when you're in a situation where you're trying to negotiate with a narcissist, it really comes down to two things, okay? There are two pieces of it that you really have to be focused on. One is their ego, and two is their need for control, okay? And I'm going to tell you how you can negotiate with them and also still appeal to these two critical components. Let me just remind you, if you like my content, please hit like on this video and also subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as new videos are released. And please share on social media to help me reach more people. When we go into negotiations with a narcissist, I see so many times where people think mediation won't work with a narcissist. And I am here to tell you that you'll be surprised if you have a good mediator. Now, all mediators are not created equal, okay? And even if you're not a mediation and you're just trying to negotiate yourself directly, don't worry, I'm going to dig into the two issues of ego and control and tell you how you can navigate that. But let me just say, mediation is often very successful when you're dealing with a narcissistic person. It's a far better option than court. You don't have to be bound by anything in mediation, so you don't really have anything to lose. You can go in, you can try to negotiate. If it goes well and you agree, cool. If you don't agree, then you walk away and you don't have agreement. Okay. So there's really not a lot at risk. There's no reason not to try, is what I always tell people. And honestly, you can actually sometimes do a lot better because the courtroom is almost like a playing field for them, right? They're so used to kind of manipulating and talking their way through things that you can almost sometimes do better in mediation because that environment isn't structured as much in that way. But if we're going to go into negotiation with a narcissist, we need to keep in mind that destroying their ego and their sense of self is not going to help you succeed in your negotiations. So even when you're, let's say, communicating in a parenting app or a text message or email or whatever it is, and you're trying to negotiate something with them, if you start attacking them or telling them how they're not a good parent or they always fail in this way or whatever, that's automatically going to set you up for failure, because one of the problems that creates the narcissistic issues is that insecurity and that a lot of times criticism as a child and different things like that are a hit to their self-esteem. And so the narcissism actually becomes, a mask. We hear that term a lot, right? It becomes a mask, a front for me to appear like I'm this confident, happy, put together, kind person, right? And in reality, behind the mask, I'm none of those things. I'm not kind. I'm totally insecure. I doubt myself at every turn. Narcissists are actually internally very, very insecure. And that may be hard to believe in a lot of ways, but it's true. That's the root of where it comes from that childhood trauma and those insecurities. So when you start attacking that right, at the outset of your negotiations, you're already putting yourself in a bad negotiation position because they're just going to shut down and they're going to be like, nope, 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 nope. They're not going to agree. You don't have to necessarily stroke their ego in a positive way, although it's great if you can do that, but you at least need to not make it worse by saying negative and damaging things. One of the things that I tell people to do is use unifying language, saying something like, I know we're both so tired of, so exhausted of being in court over this issue, right? And when you say that, instead of saying, I'm so exhausted about being in court over this issue, and I know you have to be too, and, whatever. If you can use that unifying language and say, look, just kind of assume the joint position. Look, I know we're both really struggling with, the amount of money we've spent, or I know that we're both worried about not having enough money to continue this battle, or we're both exhausted from it, or all we're doing is feeding our attorneys children and we need to get on the same page for the sake of our own children, something along those lines, having that unifying language of we, us, instead of me, you kind of positional thing. And then to the extent that you can say things like, look, I know that you're really concerned about the kids. And I tell people, like, sometimes, even if you don't think that's true, even if you think all that they're concerned about is themselves, stating something like that can go a long way. And I don't think you have to go over the top to where you say, oh, I think you're the greatest parent in the whole world, if you don't think that. But try to latch onto the positives that you see. Or if they pick the kids up early to help you out because of an appointment, thank you so much for picking the kids up. That really helps. I know you're trying to be cooperative, and I appreciate that. The little places that you can just find that little tidbit of positivity and try to put it in there to kind of stroke their ego, it helps. Now, I don't think you want to go over the top. I do have clients that go over the top and go, wow, that's so fantastic. You went on the field trip today. That's amazing. I'm sure our child was really, really grateful. You don't want to do that. Like, that's obviously very fake, and it's going to come across as such. And that's not going to help you either, because then they're just going to roll their eyes when they read it and feel frustrated and be like, oh, that person's so sarcastic. It's not going to help, right? But little subtle ways that you can kind of say positive things, give their ego that little bit of boost as you're moving through the process. And then the other thing that you want to do is give them the illusion of control. Create the illusion of control. Because again, narcissists are usually big on being in control of things. And you want to kind of create the illusion of that, even if it's not exactly the case. My favorite way to do this is when you're problem solving or you're trying to negotiate something like a pickup and drop off or a schedule change or any of those types of things. The best way to do this is to give two options. So figure out two options that you're okay with and that you can live with either way, and present those two for them to choose from. It gives them the feeling of being in control because the choice was ultimately up to them, even though you narrowed those choices to 2 or 3. I've got a client right now that's negotiating over school. We've got this big, long list of schools. And it's like, okay, well, let's do research and narrow it down to what are your top 2 or 3 choices? And then if you can live with any of those top 2 or 3 choices, then say to the other parent, hey, I know that we're trying to figure out what school is going to be best for the child next year. I would be fine with them going to any of these 3 schools. I've researched, and these 3 tend to be the top, look like they're the top academic ones. Do you have a preference of one out of these 3? And let them make the final decision. It gives that illusion of being in control. I liken it to dealing with a toddler. A toddler wants to dress themselves, but you don't want them wearing, checkered shorts with a polka dot shirt or whatever it is. And so the best way to deal with that is to lay out 2 options. I think I told this story a few days ago on another video where, we were getting ready to go out the door and we were going to the swimming pool, and my daughter-in-law told my grandson to put his shoes on, and he goes over and starts picking out tennis shoes. And she was like, no. And he started getting upset. And I just reached over and I said, okay, flip-flops or Crocs, which one, here you go. You can wear either one of these 2. Which one do you want? And then he picked out of those 2 because those were both appropriate for the pool. And so we didn't really care which one of those 2 he chose, as long as it was one of them, because the tennis shoes were going to get wet or whatever. So that's a very simplistic example, but if you can kind of keep that in your mind and try to present a narcissistic person with 2 options or 3 or whatever that you can come up with, and then let them choose from that if you really don't care which one of those it is, and that's going to create that illusion of control and make them more cooperative than they would have been. So if you'd like to get more help with issues like this, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's a link on that page where you can book a time to speak to a member of my staff, learn more about my coaching services, and how I might be able to support you on this journey. See you guys next time.